All right, we're going to see if we can get through this without my big head being in the way. All right, hello. Welcome back to Sundown Towns of America. I think that's what I'm going to call it. We're going to do state number 2, Arizona. My niece, before I put her to bed, kind of messed up some of the wording. So it's okay if you can't read it. You couldn't read my chicken scratch before anyway. I'm going to read them off anyway. Arizona is probably going to be one of the shorter ones on the list. I want to say possibly because there's not a lot of towns, but I don't know. I don't know how many cities are in Arizona. I honestly did not look it up, but I probably should. Um, but yeah, if you're a person of color and you've been to any of these places, probably second guess that for next time. Also, if any of these places that I list off, if you hear me say one and you're like, no, it's not, defend it. Defend it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know if I am right or wrong about this. I just want to put this out there as useful information for people of color so that way no one is suffering for going to these places. Anyway, the sundown towns of Arizona are Bisbee, Duncan, Globe, Kingman, Prescott, Scottsdale, Sun City. These are what they say are the certain ones. Tucson. I know how to say it. I just always want to say Tuscan. Tucson, Arizona. It's not expected sundown town, but it has interest for other reasons. So I don't know if something happened in the city and people are now weary of Tucson, but just know, be careful in Tucson. You also have Youngtown, and honorary mention is Tempe. The only reason I mentioned Tempe, Arizona is because it was not allowed for black people to be in Tempe back when, sundown towns were really, really a thing. But in the 1965, they kind of integrated. So, black people at the time weren't allowed to work. Well, they were allowed to work. They weren't allowed to live there, and they weren't allowed to own property. That wasn't until 1965 that they had their first black property owners or whatever. What I found interesting about Arizona as a whole is that Tempe was the only sundown city that when you look up Arizona sundown towns, Tempe was mainly the only one that showed up. I had to go on to a sundown town website to find these towns. But when you just look like Google Arizona sundown towns, Tempe is the only one that shows up. So found that kind of interesting that there's all these places, but that's the only one that's going to show up. And that one technically hasn't been a sundown town since around the 1960s. So, yeah. Either way, that's the sundown towns for Arizona. Join me next week. We'll be going over Arkansas. And we might be doing that in 3 parts because there's a lot of them. All right. Bye.